So guys, you know what? At this time, just leave all those English and grammar, put them aside. Why would I not they subscribe? I want to know today. Why would I not they subscribe? Eyeball to eyeball, tell me wetin happen. Make I just press subscribe button. It hard now. So guys, I need you to subscribe to my channel. Okay, share, like, and comment as well, because that's the only way you can have me here. Keep churning out videos week after week. What's up, everyone? So today we are diving deep into Rwanda's midfield ahead of the very crucial qualifiers in a couple of weeks. If you're new here on my channel, I actually spend hours, and I mean hours, analyzing, studying patterns, and breaking down the tactical details that most people actually miss. So right here, this is not your typical surface level analysis. We are going to understand exactly how this Rwandan midfield operates. So what makes them actually very dangerous for me, and most importantly, how Nigeria can actually neutralize and exploit them. So guys, grab something to drink, get comfortable, and let's dig deep into this tactical masterclass. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell as well. So this is the second episode of a very interesting 3-part series on this Rwandan game. And trust me, you don't want to miss out on the previous part and also the final, that is the concluding part, coming on soon. So alright guys, let's get started. So first up, let's talk about Bonheur Mugisha. This is a player who I think isn't getting nearly enough attention in most pre-match analysis that I've seen elsewhere. So for me, he's a more effective player as a CM than when deployed as a defensive midfielder. So this quality actually makes him one of Rwanda's most dangerous attacking threats. And after a very, very careful, meticulous analysis and research of his recent performances, I've identified exactly what actually makes him tick. What immediately comes to mind for me about Mugisha is his very, very explosive pace. We're talking about serious acceleration here, guys. I mean, we're talking 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. So that's the kind of pace that can actually catch defenders flat-footed. And also, he's got this very unique dribbling ability that complements that kind of speed perfectly as well. And he's not just fast, he's also got this technical skill to maintain control at a very high velocity, at a very high pace. So this combination makes him particularly dangerous during transition movements. There's something I've noticed about Mugisha that other analysts actually miss, and that's his versatility across the forward line. He can play any role in the forward line. Rwanda's coach has been using him in different positions, sometimes on the left, other times on the right, and also occasionally through the middle as well. So this, what I call positional fluidity that Mugisha possesses, actually makes him a lot more harder to track than to plan against. He's a perfect midfield player, and he can also be deployed in the forward line. He's that versatile. But, and this is a very big but, Mugisha has got very clear weaknesses, and these weaknesses can be exploited by Nigeria. So first, his final ball is very inconsistent. He gets into great positions, yes, but his decision making in the final third often lets him down. That's a very, very consistent pattern I've seen repeatedly. And also, his decision making isn't just a problem with his passing alone. It also extends to shooting and crossing as well. So he often chooses the wrong option to execute his passes, and this is a very big problem because of the inconsistencies in his deliveries. So how should Nigeria deal with Bonheur Mugisha? Sit back as I show you just how to neutralize his threats.
This guy right here, I must commend him. It doesn't have too many weaknesses. I mean, I've been able to spot just a couple of them. However, those couple could be really, really game changing for Nigeria. if well exposed on match day. Number one, is unable to use both feet. Is just one user of, I mean, he can only use one foot basically, and that's his right foot. He is very awful using his left foot, and that's a big weakness that we can actually pounce on and maximize and exploit rather on match day. So basically, because of his inability to use both feet, that makes him very predictable in one-on-one situations. So whenever he finds himself in midfield duels against, the central midfielder of the opposing team and the defensive midfielder, in this case, hypothetically, Papa Daniel and Wilfred Ndidi. So he almost always tries to go to his stronger foot anytime he has the ball, basically. Whenever he has the ball, he always tries to go to his stronger foot, and that is his right foot. Every time he gets isolated against midfielders, like opposition midfielders, he attempts the same move because he's only got one option. He tries to put the ball on his right foot. So a disciplined midfielder who forces him into his weaker foot, that is his left foot, can neutralize much of his threat. It's as simple as that. He's always gonna go this way with the ball. He's always wanna go towards the right side because that's where his bigger foot lies. So if a midfielder tries to force him to his left foot, he's always out of options such that he would rather retreat and play the ball back. That seizes him, that stops him from making, advances into more dangerous areas. Number two, and perhaps this is most importantly for Nigeria, is defensive contribution. His defensive contribution is very limited. And even when it does, because it doesn't track back, it doesn't know how to track back. It's very, very defensively indisciplined. So it doesn't track back enough. So when it does, its defensive positioning is often very poor. So this creates opportunities to exploit the spaces that he leaves behind. So just a quick recap. He's got just one foot, active foot, that is his right foot, So if you try to force him to his left foot, he's gonna be very, very ineffective as a midfielder on match day. Secondly, he's got very obvious defensive indiscipline such that he is not a good he doesn't retreat as quickly and as consistently as he should as a central midfielder. So what we need to do in such situations is to keep an eye on the spaces that he leaves behind whenever it fails to track back. He's gonna leave spaces. So we need players that would anticipate such loopholes and exploit them as quickly as possible. So those are the two weaknesses I've been able to spot in Bonheur Mugisha.
So guys, now let's talk about one of Rwanda's key midfielders. His name is Jihad Bizimana. Some analysts actually describe him as an attacking midfielder, but from my research, he's actually clearly operating as a very solid defensive midfielder, and he's got very specific responsibilities. But for me, what actually stands out immediately about Jihad Bizimana is his physicality. He's got so much imposing physicality in the middle. He's very strong in tackle and also very committed and fearless about where to put his body. So guys, how should Nigeria approach a player as delicate as Bizimana? He's the workhorse of the team, and the more docile he is on the pitch, the more controlling and dominant Nigeria midfield will be. So he is to Rwanda what Kante was to France and Chelsea, of course. A happy Bizimana basically is a happy Rwanda.
So next up, guys, is how to neutralize perhaps Rwanda's strongest midfield player, Jihad Bizimana. This guy right here, this guy is extremely very pivotal to the success or failure of the Amavubis. So in this particular video analysis, I'm going to show you just how Nigeria can render him very docile and ineffective on match day. So for Bizimana, I call him Bizimana Bizimana. He's actually Bizimana actually. Yeah, he's Bizimana. So for Bizimana, he's a shield for Rwanda's defense. Basically, that's what he does. It's like is what to Rwanda, what N'Golo Kante is to France and Chelsea Football Club. So as a shield for Rwanda's defense, is remarkably very, very effective. He sits right in front of those center backs, thus making it difficult for opponents to play through the middle. So let me do a quick illustration of what I mean here. So when you have a player like Bizimana, is a kind of player that can actually double up as two players. He's got very, very immense energy levels. So he can take care of a lot of players at the same time. Is that effective basically? So when he sits here in front of the defense of the Rwanda national team, he's remarkably very effective. So it makes it difficult for opponents to play through the middle, basically. So teams often end up being forced wide most of the time because apart from Bizimana's influence in the midfield, most of the time, especially when Rwanda are playing a seemingly superior team on paper, they love to have four midfielders shielding four defenders. So they have two banks of fours, trying as much as possible to pack the bus. And I suspect that is what they will do against Nigeria because, I mean, they are top of the log. Nigeria is number 5. If there's one desperate team looking for a win at all costs, it has to be Nigeria. They are not really under pressure to open up, and play expansive football. So they are definitely going to sit back and watch what Nigeria will do. So one of the tactics they're going to deploy on the day is to force Nigeria wide because they're going to crowd the midfield. So it's safe to say the touchline basically is Rwanda's 12th man. They will do this a lot of times. They will deflect play towards the wings for sure. So, I mean, they will force us wide and reduce us to merely floating in crosses. Because when they force us wide and try as much as possible to stop us from playing through the middle, then when frustration starts to kick in around the 60 something minutes without a goal, Nigeria would be forced to like float balls into the midfield and hope somebody will be on the end of those crosses. And that can be really frustrating if you ask me. So that was why I actually proposed someone like Lookman as a number 10 because we need someone to split this defense wide, this midfield wide open. And it takes a player that has the attribute of close control, extremely good first touch, and ability to get past markers, because of his technical ability. So we need a number 10 to split this midfield open so that we can actually play through the middle because Nigeria can be very, very frustrating to watch if you see them keep, floating in crosses. It's gonna keep coming, and nothing is gonna happen, positively. So we need players that can actually split these very resolute banks of four open as quickly as possible, so that we don't get frustrated as the match nears its end. So, like I said, they're gonna deflect the play towards the touchline for the most part of the game. And no thanks to this guy here, Bizimana, is gonna run his socks off. I guarantee you that on that day. So they believe with the likes of Mutsinzi and Manzi, these guys, Mutsinzi and Manzi, they are actually the they are the walls of they are the strong wall of the Rwandan back four. So they believe, if we keep floating in crosses like that, they believe in the aerial ability of these two guys that they will take care of Osimhen. And they actually did, in the past couple of games. So why not? They can do it again. So this is why we are condemned to playing a very, very technically gifted number 10 to make sure we slice this middle route open as quickly as possible in the game. So if we do that, if we slice it open and we are able to get a goal in the first 15, 20 minutes, then they will change their tactics such that they will open up, spaces for us to, further exploit. Also, I've noticed Bizimana's leadership qualities on the pitch. Is constantly organizing, pointing and directing traffic around him. That kind of on-field leadership is very invaluable. I must stress, especially in a very chaotic atmosphere of a World Cup qualifier. So now let me talk about his weaknesses. His mobility when covering large areas is very restricted. He can take care of, a couple of players at the same time, as long as those players are not too far away from each other. The moment the players actually run into pockets of spaces and they are well dispersed, such that he needs to cover grounds to take care of, the two players, he struggles. So he's unable to cover large areas, and when the game open up, because when players fly around him and don't stay too close to each other, he's gonna struggle big time to keep an eye on a couple of players simultaneously. Another weakness for Bizimana is that under pressure his technical limitations become very obvious, because while he can play simple passes, he's able to play simple passes after retrieving the ball from, the opposition strikers and attacking midfielders. He can play those, simple passes effectively. But when pressed intensely, when we have players like Osimhen, Osimhen is very energetic. Lookman isn't as energetic as Osimhen, but he can, whatever energy level he can bring to the pitch would also do as well. So if we have a Lookman and Osimhen pressing Bizimana while in possession of the ball, his decision making becomes very hasty and his execution suffers because of that, because he's not really a technically gifted player, he's just very energetic. So basically he compensates for his lack of technicality with good good industry, work ethic basically. So if you have players pressing him down whenever he's in possession of the ball, he makes very hurried decisions which can actually affect his execution. Then also is very vulnerable against quick transitions, especially when Rwanda's shape is disrupted. So in such moments, it lacks the recovery pace to get back and protect the defenders effectively.
So now, guys, let's talk about one of Rwanda's most exciting attacking midfield talents. His name is Kevin Muhire. So Muhire's pace and dribbling ability, for me, immediately stand out. His ability to take on defenders in one-on-one situations creates a whole lot of problems for even the most sophisticated and disciplined backlines. Also, his crossing ability basically is another major weapon to look out for. Unlike some wingers who just hit and hope, not Muhire. Muhire generally delivers with precision and purpose. He's the kind of player that gets his head up and picks out a very, very good target and delivers quality balls into very, very extremely dangerous areas. So what makes Muhire so effective is his direct running. He's got a very direct running style. It doesn't overcomplicate things as well. It keeps things really simple. When he sees space, he attacks it aggressively. This directness actually makes him very, very erratic. Very, very unpredictable and very difficult to defend against, basically. And on counter-attack situations, this is where it becomes truly very dangerous. His acceleration and decision making in transition situations, wow. He can actually turn defense into attack in seconds, basically. So guys, how exactly should Nigeria approach playing against a Muhire, basically? Number one, we have to exploit the spaces he leaves when attacking, because our midfield needs to pay utmost attention, to the loopholes he creates when he advances, because he's going to do that a whole lot of times, especially when he fails, to track back. Number two, we also need to cut off, the supply line to him as well, because they depend on him a whole lot of times. So if the passing lanes to Muhire are blocked and cut out, Rwanda loses a very significant attacking outlet, basically.
In addition to all of that, Kevin Muhire's other weaknesses are, very synonymous to every attacking midfield talent, basically, in number 10. So, and this is very crucial for Nigeria, as Muhire's contribution defensively is very, very limited. He doesn't always track back, and that is very understandable. But in a case where, Nigeria needs to get a goal, especially when Rwanda throw men forward in counter-attacking situations, then we must actually exploit those spaces left behind by Muhire. It's very, very important we do that. Um, so these spaces that he leaves behind obviously creates opportunities for our midfielders to attack and exploit as much as possible. Then also importantly for us is that his impact fade, and this is very crucial actually. His impact, that is Muhire's impact, fades if the game isn't going Rwanda's way, because um, when under sustained pressure, he sometimes struggles to remain involved and remain influential to the team. Because obviously the game is not going to go Rwanda's way, God willing. And when you have a player that gets frustrated when his team is, receiving some bashing by the opposition player, he gets really frustrated. He doesn't have the capacity to influence and impact games as much as he would do normally. So basically, the key here is to make sure we exploit the spaces he leaves behind anytime Rwanda makes offensive transitions. Then also we should try as much as possible, like I said earlier, to get a goal in the early minutes of the game. Because when we get a goal in the early minutes of the game, Muhire will be forced to leave the bank of four and proceed and advance, offensively. So when it does that, inevitably it's gonna leave spaces behind it. So those are the two ways we can actually neutralize or make Kevin Muhire a lot more ineffective during the game.
Alrighty, so let's move on to the next player called Jihad Ruboneka. He's a midfielder that actually brings a different kind of dimension to Rwanda's setup. So after watching Ruboneka across multiple matches, I've noticed he's very vital. He's a vital element that keeps their midfield ticking offensively, that is. So he's not the most flashy player, but his contribution is absolutely crucial, very, very crucial to how they play. So I will show you. So after all said, so how should Nigeria approach a player like Ruboneka? Number one, aggressive passing is very essential. When he receives the ball, he should immediately feel pressure from our midfielders immediately. This actually would force him to rush his decisions. He's going to make a lot of hasty decisions. I would say quick combinations in the midfield can bypass his positioning. So basically, if our midfielders can actually play rapid one-touch passes, we can actually break through Rwanda's midfield structure that is spearheaded by a player like Ruboneka. He actually struggles to adjust his body like most of these Rwandan players. So this is one big flaw we should be looking to exploit. Quick combinations. It's gonna keep them on their toes. So guys, finally, let's examine Samuel Gueulette. He's particularly interesting because he's a Belgium-born player. So he's obviously got European football experience. He currently plays with L'Anvers. This background actually gives him a very sound tactical understanding compared to many of his teammates in the Amavubi national team. So it shows in his versatility as he's able to play as a CM, he can play as a DM, and guess what? He can also play as a right back. So for me, what immediately stands out about Gueulette is his technical ability, which is notably above, it's way above the Rwandan average. His first touch, close control and passing range, his technique reflects his European football heritage and education as well. And his movement of the ball is another key strength, while some players at his level are, kind of static. When some players at his level are kind of static, when they don't have possession, Gueulette is constantly moving. He's creating angles and finding pockets of spaces. So basically, this intelligent movement makes him very difficult, extremely very difficult, to track. And also, his finishing ability shouldn't be underestimated as well, because when he gets opportunities in the box, he's generally very clinical and very composed in front of the goalkeeper. So look at these examples that I've cited. Look at these attributes that I've cited, and you really understand why we need to pay a whole lot of attention to this guy called Samuel Gueulette. So after all said, Samuel Gueulette actually has very, very obvious limitations that Nigeria can exploit, because he's obviously still adapting to African football's physicality. So the European game basically is certainly physical. I'm not taking that out of the European game, but in a very different way from African football. So this guy Gueulette, he actually typically gets muscled off the ball, or lose physical duels that are more robust, and other players might possibly win. He actually loses those duels. He also tends to be less effective in high tempo games. When matches become very frantic and very chaotic, as they often do in African qualifiers, you would agree with me. So his influence basically diminishes as he struggles to impose, his more, measured finesse and technical approach, because African games are actually very physical. So how exactly should Nigeria, approach playing against someone as sophisticated as Gueulette? Number one, we have to adopt a very, very physical approach to disrupt his comfort, basically. Midfielders should be very aggressive and look to impose themselves, physically when challenging a player like Samuel Gueulette. A physical double pivot will easily take care of Gueulette, trust me. He doesn't like such physical duels. Also, second, I would apply aggressive, pressing when he receives the ball. Don't give him time to get his head up and pick passes, because it can be really, really dangerous when he does that. Also, number three, we can also deny him space between the lines where he likes to operate, basically. So what I'm saying is our defensive midfielder needs to be very aware of his very delicate movements and positioning, just to cut off those pockets of space that he's gonna try to find himself in the midfield. So finally, we can actually use very experienced defenders who won't be fooled by his movement and can anticipate his intentions based on his body position and movement, basically. Unfortunately, Leon Balogun is not going to be available for this game. Otherwise, that is where a player like Balogun, who actually plays more with his mind than his body, will be very, very vital. So guys, you know what? At this time, just leave all those English and grammar, put them aside. Why would I not they subscribe? I want to know today. Why would I not they subscribe? Eyeball to eyeball, tell me what happen. Because I just press subscribe button, it had to now. So guys, I need you to subscribe to my channel, okay? Share, like, and comment as well, because that's the only way you can have me here, keep churning out videos week after week. So guys, the next video basically is going to be about the analysis of the forward line of the Amavubis. So we're done with part 1, part 2, and the final part will be the part 3, that is the analysis of the forward line. So I need you guys to subscribe, share, like, and keep me motivated so that I can keep making videos as these. So see you around next time. Bye.